The Cleveland Browns are a professional American football franchise based in Cleveland, Ohio. They are currently members of the North Division of the American Football Conference of the National Football League. Their current home venue is FirstEnergy Stadium. Their administrative offices and training facilities are located in Berea, Ohio. The Browns' official colors are burnt orange, seal brown, and white. They are unique among the 32 member franchises of the National Football League in that they do not have a helmet logo. The Cleveland Browns were founded in 1945 by businessman Arthur B. McBride as a charter member of the All-America Football Conference, which began play the following year. The Cleveland Browns went on to dominate the AAFC, compiling a 47-4-3 record in the league's 4 active seasons and winning its championship in each of them. When the AAFC folded after the 1949 season, the Browns joined the National Football League. The Browns won a championship in their inaugural NFL season, as well as in the 1954, 1955, and 1964 seasons. From 1965 to 1995, they made the playoffs 14 times, but have never won another championship or even appeared in the Super Bowl. After the 1995 season, Art Model, who had purchased the Browns in 1961, moved the franchise to Baltimore, Maryland, and renamed it the Baltimore Ravens. The rights to the Browns' intellectual property were kept in trust, and in 1999, an expansion team opened in Cleveland under the Browns name. Since resuming operations in 1999, the Cleveland Browns have posted a 77-163 record through the 2013 season. They have had 2 winning seasons, a 9-7 record in 2002 and a 10-6 record in 2007, and qualified for the playoffs in the former as a wild card team. History. Founding and success in the AAFC, the Browns' origins date to 1944. When taxicab magnate Arthur B. Mickey McBride secured the rights to a Cleveland franchise in the newly formed All-America Football Conference. The AAFC was to compete with the dominant National Football League once it began operations at the end of World War II, which had forced many professional teams to curtail activity, merge, or go on hiatus as their players served in the U.S. military. Early in 1945, McBride named 36-year-old Ohio State Buckeyes coach Paul Brown as the team's head coach and general manager and gave him a share in its profits. The move surprised and upset Buckeye fans, who had hoped he would resume his successful run at the school after the war. Brown, who had built an impressive record as coach of a Massillon, Ohio, high school team and brought the Buckeyes their first national championship, at the time was serving in the U.S. Navy and coached the football team at Great Lakes Naval Station near Chicago. The name of the team was at first left up to Paul Brown, who rejected calls for it to be christened the Browns. The franchise then held a naming contest to publicize the team, promising a $1,000 war bond to the winner. In June 1945, a committee selected Panthers as the new team's name. McBride, however, changed it to the Browns 2 months later, the result of another naming contest that suggested Browns, not after Paul Brown himself, but as a shortened version of Brown Bombers, a reference to the nickname of boxer Joe Louis. Some sources say McBride was asked for thousands of dollars in compensation from a businessman who owned the rights to the name Cleveland Panthers, an earlier failed football team. As the war began to wind down with Germany's surrender in May 1945, the team parlayed Brown's ties to college football and the military to build its roster. Negotiations with players were handled by John Brickles, the team's acting manager, as Brown was still in the Navy. The first signings were Otto Graham, a former star quarterback at Northwestern University, and Herb Coleman, a center at Notre Dame, both of whom were then in the military. The Browns later signed kicker and defensive tackle Luke Rosa and wide receivers Dante Lavilli and Max Beede. Fullback Marion Motley and nose tackle Bill Willis, 2 of the earliest African Americans to play professional football, also joined the team in 1946. The Browns' first regular season game took place September 6, 1946 at Cleveland Municipal Stadium against the Miami Seahawks before a record crowd of 60,135. That contest, which the Browns won 44-0, kicked off an era of dominance. With Brown at the helm, the team won all four of the AAFC's championships from 1946 until the conference's dissolution in 1949, amassing a record of 52 wins, 4 losses, and 3 ties. This included the 1948 season, in which the Browns became the first unbeaten and untied team in professional football history, 24 years before the NFL's 1972 Miami Dolphins duplicated the feat. Cleveland's total undefeated streak stretched to 18 wins and included the 1947 and 1948 AAFC championship games. The Browns had few worthy rivals among the AAFC's 8 teams, but the New York Yankees and San Francisco 49ers were their closest competition. Cleveland met the Yankees in the 1946 and 1947 championships and faced the 49ers for the title in 1949, winning all of those games. One of the highlights of the AAFC years was a contest between the 49ers and Browns in 1948. Both teams came into the game undefeated, with the Browns 9-0 and the 49ers 10-0. Behind a stiff defense and helped by San Francisco turnovers, the Browns won the clash of the unbeaten by a score of 14-7 before a crowd of 82,769, a professional football attendance record at the time. While the Browns excelled on defense, Cleveland's winning ways were driven by an offense that employed Brown's version of the T formation, which emphasized speed, timing and execution over set plays. Brown liked his players lean and hungry, and championed quickness over bulk. Graham became a star under Brown's system, leading all passers in each of the AAFC's seasons and racking up 10,085 passing yards. Motley, who Brown in 1948 called the greatest fullback that ever lived, was the AAFC's all-time leading rusher. Laville was the league's top receiver in 1946, while Speedy won those honors in 1947 and 1949. Brown and 6 players from the Browns' AAFC years were elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame: Graham, Motley, Koser, Laville, Willis, and center Frank Gatsky. The Cleveland area showered support on the Browns from the outset. Brown's celebrity was cresting in the late 1940s, thanks to his success with teams at the high school, college, and now professional levels. Meanwhile, the Browns unexpectedly had Cleveland to themselves. The NFL's Cleveland Rams, who had continually lost money despite winning the 1945 NFL championship, moved to Los Angeles after that season. The Browns' on-field feats only amplified their popularity, and the team saw a record-setting average attendance of 57,000 per game in its first season. The Browns, however, became victims of their own success. Their dominance exposed a lack of balance among AAFC teams, which the league tried to correct by sending Browns players including quarterback Y.A. Tittle to the Baltimore Colts in 1948. Attendance at Browns games fell in later years as fans lost interest in lopsided victories. Despite an undefeated season in 1948, only 23,891 people showed up to see the Browns beat the Buffalo Bills in the championship game. These factors combined with a war for players between the two leagues that raised salaries and ate into owners' profits ultimately led to the dissolution of the AAFC and the merger of 3 of its teams, including the Browns, into the NFL in 1949. The NFL has so far refused to acknowledge AAFC statistics and records because the Browns' achievements including their perfect season did not take place in the NFL or against NFL teams, and not even in a league fully absorbed by the NFL. Success and challenges in the NFL. The AAFC proposed matchups with NFL teams numerous times during its 4-year existence, but no interleague game ever materialized. That made the Browns' entry into the NFL in the 1950 season the first test of whether their early supremacy could carry over into a more established league. Some people suggested Cleveland was at best the dominant team in a minor league, while others were confident of its prospects in the NFL. The proof of Cleveland's mettle came quickly. Its NFL regular season opener was against the 2-time defending champion Eagles on September 16 in Philadelphia. The Browns quashed any doubts about their prowess in that game, amassing 487 yards of offense including 246 passing yards from Graham and his receivers en route to a 35-10 win before a crowd of 71,237. Behind a potent offense that featured Graham, Koser, Motley, Laville, and running back Dub Jones, the Browns finished the 1950 regular season with a 10-2 record, tied for first place in their conference. Cleveland then won a playoff game 8-3 against the New York Giants on December 17 behind a pair of Koser field goals, turning the tables on a team that handed the Browns both of their regular season losses. That set up the NFL championship match a week later in Cleveland, between the Browns and the Rams, the NFL team that had moved from Cleveland just 5 years earlier. The Browns won the championship game, 30-28, on a last-minute Koser field goal. Fans stormed the field after the victory, carting off the goalposts, ripping off one player's jersey, and setting a bonfire in the bleachers. "There never was a game like this one," Browns said. After 5 straight championship wins in the AAFC and NFL, the Browns appeared poised to bring another trophy home in 1951. The team finished the regular season with 11 wins and a single loss in the first game of the season. Cleveland faced the Rams on December 23 in a rematch of the previous year's title game. The score was deadlocked 17-17 in the final period, but a 73-yard touchdown pass by Rams quarterback Norm Van Brocklin to wide receiver Tom Fears broke the tie and gave Los Angeles the lead for good. The 24-17 loss was the Browns' first in a championship game. The 1952 and 1953 seasons followed a similar pattern, with Cleveland reaching the championship game but losing both times to the Detroit Lions. The Browns finished 8-4 in 1952, but lost that year's championship game 17-7 after a muffed punt, several Lions defensive stands and a 67-yard touchdown run by Derek Walker scuttled their chances. The team finished 11-1 in 1953, and narrowly lost the championship game to the Lions by a score of 17-16 on a 33-yard Bobby Lane touchdown pass to Jim Doran with just over 2 minutes left. While the championship losses sowed bitterness among Cleveland fans who had grown accustomed to winning, the team continued to make progress. Len Ford, who the Browns picked up from the defunct AAFC Los Angeles Dons team, emerged as a force on the defensive line, making the Pro Bowl each year between 1951 and 1953. Second-year wideout Ray Renfro became a star in 1953 with 722 yards receiving and 352 yards rushing, also reaching the Pro Bowl. Meanwhile, in a November 15, 1953 game against the 49ers, Otto Graham took an elbow from linebacker Art Michalik that put a gash on his face requiring 15 stitches. Graham's helmet was fitted with a clear plastic mask and he was sent back on the field. While the use of face masks was not unheard of Y.A. Tittle was using one that season as he nursed a fractured cheekbone the injury contributed to their development. Brown is often credited with inventing and patenting the single-bar face mask. Riedel, a sports equipment manufacturer, claims the bar tubular mask was invented by G. E. Morgan for Graham in 1955, although by the end of that year many players were already wearing some form of face protection. During the summer before the 1953 season, the Browns' original owners sold the team for a then unheard of $600,000. The old stockholders were Arthur B. Mickey McBride and his son Edward, along with minority owners including McBride business associate Dan Sherby, Brown, and 4 others. The buyers were a group of prominent Cleveland businessmen: Homer Marshman, an attorney, David Jones, a businessman and former Cleveland Indians director, Ellis Ryan, a former Indians president, Saul Silberman, owner of the Randall Park Racetrack, and Ralph DeShairo, an associate of Silberman. McBride said he made the deal simply because he'd had his fling with football and wanted to move on to other activities. McBride's tenure as owner was viewed favorably, partly because of the Browns' on-field success but also because he gave Brown a free hand to sign players and coach. One of the new ownership group's first acts was to assure Cleveland fans they would give Brown the same kind of leeway. The Browns came into 1954 as one of the most powerful teams in the NFL, having reached the championship in each of their first 4 years in the league. But the future was far from certain. Graham, whose leadership and throwing skills had been instrumental in the Browns' championship runs, said he planned to retire after the season. Motley, the team's best rusher and blocker in its early years, retired at the beginning of the season with a bad knee. Star defensive lineman Bill Willis also retired before the season. Still, Cleveland finished the regular season 9-3 as Graham and Lovely excelled on offense and linemen Len Ford and Don Colo held up the defense. The Browns met Detroit on December 26 in the championship game for a third consecutive time. And this time the Browns dominated on both sides of the ball, intercepting Bobby Lane 6 times and forcing 3 fumbles while Graham threw 3 touchdowns and ran for 3 more. The Browns, who lost the last game of the regular season to the Lions only a week before, won their second NFL crown 56-10. "I saw it, but still hardly can believe it," Lions coach Buddy Parker said after the game. "It has me dazed." The Browns kept rolling in 1955 after Brown convinced Graham to come back and play, arguing that the team lacked a solid alternative. Chuck Noll had a productive season at linebacker with 5 interceptions, Graham passed for 15 touchdowns and ran for 6 more, and the team finished the regular season 9-2-1. The Browns went on to win their third championship game in 6 NFL seasons, beating the Los Angeles Rams 38-14. It was Graham's last game. The win capped a 10-year run in which he led his team to the league championship every year, winning 4 in the AAFC and 3 in the NFL. The end of the Graham era, however, was also the end of the Browns' dominant streak. The team floundered in 1956 as it struggled to find a permanent replacement for Graham. The season began with longtime backup George Rattleman at quarterback, but Babe Parilli took his place when the starter was injured. After Parilli was hurt, relative unknown Tommy O'Connell took up the position for the remainder of the season. None of them threw more touchdowns than interceptions, and Cleveland's 5-7 finish was its first losing season ever. Dante Lovely and Frank Gatsky retired at the end of the season, leaving Koser as the only original Cleveland player still on the team. While the Browns' on-field play in 1956 was uninspiring, off-the-field drama developed after a Cleveland-based inventor named George Zales let Brown test a helmet with a radio transmitter inside. After trying it out in training camp, Brown used the helmet to call on plays during a September 15 preseason game against the Lions with Rattleman behind center. The device allowed the coach to direct his quarterback on the fly, giving him an advantage over franchises who had to use messenger players to relay instructions. The Browns used the device off and on into the regular season, and other teams began to experiment with their own radio helmets. The NFL's commissioner at the time, Bert Bell, banned the device in October 1956. Today, however, all NFL teams use in-helmet radios to communicate with players. The Jim Brown era and new ownership. With Otto Graham and most of the other original Browns in retirement, by 1957 the team was struggling to replenish its ranks. Cleveland was coming off a series of bad drafts, including in 1954, when the team selected quarterback Bobby Garrett with the first pick. Garrett, Graham's presumed successor, did not play a single game for Cleveland, who traded him to Green Bay, brought him back 3 years later, then released him for good after he could not overcome a stutter that made calling plays in the huddle difficult. In 1957's draft, however, Cleveland took fullback Jim Brown out of Syracuse University in the first round. In his first season, Brown was the NFL's leading rusher with 942 yards in a 12-game regular season and was voted Rookie of the Year in a United Press poll. Led by Brown's running and quarterback Tommy O'Connell's passing, Cleveland finished 9-2-1 and again advanced to the championship game against Detroit. But the Lions dominated the game, forcing 6 turnovers and allowing only 112 yards passing in a 59-14 rout. Detroit's last league championship to date. Before the 1958 season, Cleveland was again in search of a quarterback. O'Connell had played well in the previous 2 seasons. He led the league in passing in 1957, but lacked the stature and durability Paul Brown wanted in a starter. He stood at just 5 feet, 10 inches tall and was hurt numerous times, including a sprained ankle and a broken bone in his leg that kept him out of the last 2 games of the 1957 regular season. Due in part to these injuries, O'Connell retired early in 1958 to take a coaching job in Illinois, and Milt Plum was named the starter. Cleveland, however, was relying increasingly on the running game, in contrast to its pass-happy early years under Graham. As the team built up a 9-3 regular season record, Brown in 1958 ran for 1,527 yards, almost twice as much as any other back under league record at the time. Entering the final game of the 1958 season, Cleveland needed to either win or tie against the New York Giants to clinch the Eastern Conference title and the right to host the championship game. On the game's first play from scrimmage, Brown raced 65 yards for a touchdown, giving Cleveland a 7-0 lead. Entering the fourth quarter, the Browns held a 10-3 advantage, but the Giants tied it, then won it with 2 minutes left on a 49-yard field goal by Pat Summerall under snowy conditions. That set up a playoff between the Browns and Giants the following week. In that game, Brown was held to 8 yards and the team committed 4 turnovers in a 10-0 loss. The Giants went on to play the Baltimore Colts in the championship, a game often cited as the seed of professional football's popularity surge in the U.S. Cleveland's campaigns in 1959 and 1960 were noteworthy for Brown's league-leading rushing totals in both seasons. Plum became established as the starting quarterback, bringing a measure of stability to the squad not seen since Graham's retirement. The Penn State product led the team to a 7-5 record in 1959, and 1 year later, he turned in one of the greatest statistical seasons at his position in NFL history. Nonetheless, in 1960, the Browns dropped 3 games by a total of 10 points, finished with an 8-3-1 record and out of the playoffs for the second consecutive season. Art Model, a 35-year-old advertising executive from Brooklyn, purchased the team in 1961 from a group of shareholders led by National Insurance Company. The beginnings of a power struggle between Paul Brown and Art Model took its toll. Journalist D.L. Stewart recounted in Jeff Miller's book on the AFL, Going Long, as you well can imagine, Jimmy Brown and Paul were not thick. The buzz was that Jimmy had Model working for him, and Paul took exception to that. The season otherwise was typical, a 5th consecutive league-leading season from Jim Brown and a half-decent performance in the standings, but again, at 8-5-1, they were 2 games out of a berth in the championship. After a 7-6-1 record in 1962, Model fired Paul Brown on January 9, 1963, and replaced him 1 week later with longtime assistant Blanton Collier. Many of the Browns' younger players, such as Jim Brown and quarterback Frank Ryan, had chafed under Brown's autocratic coaching style. In contrast, Collier ran the club with a much looser grip. He installed a much more open offense and allowed Ryan to call his own plays. In Collier's first season, the Browns won their first 6 games, but a damaging mid-season slump ended up costing them the Eastern Division title as they finished 1 game back with a 10-4 mark. On an individual level, Jim Brown won Most Valuable Player accolades with a record 1,863 yards rushing. Continued success under Blanton Collier. In 1964, the Browns went 10-3-1 and reached their first title game in 7 years. They throttled the heavily favored Baltimore Colts 27-0, with receiver Gary Collins catching 3 touchdown passes to earn the MVP award. Currently, this is the most recent Major League Sports championship for the city of Cleveland. The following year, the Browns again reached the title game, but came up short against the Green Bay Packers. That 1965 title game would mark the final game in a Browns uniform for Jim Brown. During the start of the subsequent training camp, Brown was still in England filming scenes for The Dirty Dozen due to production delays. On July 14, Brown announced his retirement from football to concentrate on his fledgling acting career. the Browns were able to blunt the effect of Brown's departure with the emergence of third-year running back Leroy Kelly, who would rush for more than 1,000 yards in each of the next 3 seasons, leading the league during the latter 2 years. After missing out on the postseason in 1966, the Browns rebounded with a €9-5 season the following year. However, they were quickly eliminated by the Dallas Cowboys, 52-14 in the first round of the playoffs. In each of the next 2 seasons, the Browns took revenge on the Cowboys in the playoffs, winning by scores of 30-21 and 38-14, respectively. However, both victories were in turn followed by stinging defeats, preventing them from reaching the Super Bowl. In May 1969, the Browns, along with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Colts, agreed to move in 1970 to the post-merger American Football Conference. Inconsistent performances throughout the 1970 campaign proved to be fatal to postseason hopes as the team finished 1 game behind Paul Brown's upstart Cincinnati Bengals with a 7-7 record. Late in the 1970 season, Collier officially announced his retirement due to increased hearing problems, and was replaced by the team's offensive coordinator Nick Skurich. The Cardiac Kids, Skurich led the Browns to a division title in 1971 and a wild-card berth in 1972. In the latter year, the Browns battled the undefeated Miami Dolphins before losing 20-14, as the Dolphins went on to capture their first Super Bowl title with a spotless 17-0 mark. In 1973, the Browns were handicapped by a struggling offense, but remained in contention until the closing weeks of the season, finishing with a 7-5-2 record. However, the team's era of success came to a crashing halt as it dropped to 4-10 in 1974. Neither quarterback Mike Phipps nor rookie Brian Sipe was effective behind center. They threw 24 combined interceptions to only 10 touchdowns. The Browns allowed 344 points, most in the league. It was only the second losing season in franchise history, and it cost Skurich his job. Assistant coach Forrest Gregg took over in 1975, but the Browns stumbled out of the gate with an 0-9 start that finally came to an end on November 23 in a 35-23 comeback victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. 3 weeks later, third-year running back Greg Pruitt paced the team with 214 yards rushing in a rout over the Kansas City Chiefs, helping the team finish the season 3-11. Cleveland showed marked improvement with a 9-5 record in 1976 as Brian Sipe firmly took control at quarterback. Sipe had been inserted into the lineup after a Phipps injury in the season-opening win against the New York Jets on September 12. After a 1-3 start brought visions of another disastrous year, the Browns jolted the 2-time defending Super Bowl champion Steelers with an 18-16 victory on October 10. Third-string quarterback Dave Mays helped lead the team to that victory, while defensive end Joe Turkey Jones' pile-driving sack of Pittsburgh quarterback Terry Bradshaw fueled the heated rivalry between the two teams. That win was the first of 8 in the next 9 weeks, helping put the Browns in contention for the AAFC playoffs. The Browns rattled off wins over the Atlanta Falcons and San Diego Chargers, before a 21-6 loss to their cross-state rivals, the Paul Brown-owned Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns rebounded and picked up wins over the Houston Oilers, Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Miami Dolphins, and a second victory over Houston, giving the Browns a series sweep for the season. A 39-14 blowout loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season finale cost them a share of the division title, but running back Pruitt continued his outstanding play by rushing for exactly 1,000 yards, his second straight 4-digit season. Brian Sipe finished the season completing 178 passes in 312 attempts, for 2,113 yards. He also had 17 touchdown passes versus 14 interceptions. The Browns continued to roll in the first half of the 1977 season, but an injury to Sipe by Steelers linebacker Jack Lambert on November 13 proved to be disastrous. Cleveland won only one of their last 5 games to finish at 6-8, a collapse that led to Forrest Gregg's dismissal before the final game of the season. Dick Modzelewski served as interim coach in the team's 20-19 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. On December 27, 1977, Sam Ruscioliano was named head coach, and he aided a healthy Sipe in throwing 21 touchdowns and garnering 2,900 yards during the 1978 NFL season. Greg Pruitt and Mike Pruitt led a rushing attack that gained almost 2,500 yards, but problems with the team's dismal pass defense resulted in the Browns finishing 8-8 on the year. The 1979 campaign started with 4 consecutive wins, 3 of which were in the final minute or overtime. 4 more games were won by less than a touchdown. This penchant for playing close games would later earn them the nickname Cardiac Kids. Sipe threw 28 touchdown passes, tying him with Steve Grogan of New England for most in the league, but his 26 interceptions were the worst in the league. Mike Pruitt had a Pro Bowl season with his 1,294 rushing yards, while the defense was still shaky, ranking near the bottom in rushing defense. The team finished 9-7, behind division rivals Houston and Pittsburgh in a tough AFC Central. The 1980 season is still fondly remembered by Browns fans. After going 3-3 in the first 6 games, the Browns won 3 straight games with fourth-quarter comebacks, and stopped a late comeback by the Baltimore Colts to win a 4th. The Browns won 2 more games in that fashion by the end of the season, and even lost a game to the Minnesota Vikings on the last play when a Hail Mary pass was tipped into the waiting hands of Ahmad Rashad. Sipe passed for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns with only 14 interceptions, behind an offensive line that sent 3 members to the Pro Bowl, Doug Dyken, Tom DeLeone, and Joe DeLemueller. The Cardiac Kids name stuck. A fourth-quarter field goal by Don Cockcroft in the final game against the Bengals helped the Browns capture the division with an 11-5 mark, with the Oakland Raiders their opponent in the team's first playoff game in 8 years. However, a heartbreaking end to this dramatic season came in the closing seconds when Ruscioliano called what became known as Red Right 88, and had Sipe pass toward the end zone, only to watch Oakland's Mike Davis intercept the ball. The Raiders went on to win the Super Bowl, and Red Right 88 has numbered among the list of Cleveland's sports curses ever since. If 1980 was a dream season, then 1981 was a nightmare. Sipe threw only 17 touchdowns while being picked off 25 times. The Browns went 5-11, and few of their games were particularly close. Tight end Ozzie Newsome, their only Pro Bowler, had 1,004 yards receiving for 6 touchdowns. In 1982 Sipe split quarterbacking duties with Paul McDonald, and both put up similar numbers. The Browns had little success rushing or defending against it, finishing in the bottom 5 teams in both yardage categories. Despite going 4-5, Cleveland was able to make the playoffs due to an expanded playoff system in the strike-shortened year. They were matched up again with the Raiders in the playoffs, but were easily defeated 27-10. Sipe and the Browns got some of their spark back in 1983. Sipe had 26 touchdown passes and 3,566 yards, while Mike Pruitt ran for 10 scores on 1,184 yards. Cleveland even won 2 games in overtime and another in the fourth quarter. A fourth-quarter loss to the Oilers in their second-to-last game dashed their playoff hopes. At 9-7 the Browns finished 1 game behind the Steelers, and lost out on a wild card spot due to a tiebreaker. 1984 was a rebuilding year. Brian Sipe defected to the upstart United States Football League after the 1983 season, and Paul McDonald was named the starting quarterback. Mike Pruitt missed much of the season and later ended up with the Buffalo Bills. Coach Sam Ruscioliano lost his job after a 1-7 start as Marty Schottenheimer took over. The Browns coasted to a 5-11 record. Bernie Koser and the Broncos rivalry. In 1985, the Browns selected University of Miami quarterback Bernie Koser in the supplemental draft. As a rookie, Koser learned through trial by fire as he took over for Gary Danielson midway through the 1985 season. Progressing a bit more each Sunday, the young quarterback helped turn the struggling season around, As the Browns won 4 of the 10 games Koser started. 2 young rushers, Ernest Biner and Kevin Mack, played a large part in the team's success as well. Each ran for 1,000-plus yards. The Browns' 8 record gave the team the top spot in a weak AAFC Central, and they looked poised to shock the heavily favored Miami Dolphins in the divisional playoff game with a 21-3 lead at halftime. It took Dan Marino's spirited second-half comeback to win the game for Miami 24-21. While the Browns faithful may have felt the initial sting of disappointment, there was tremendous upside in the loss. Schottenheimer's team, with Koser at quarterback, reached the playoffs each of the next 5 seasons, advancing to the AAFC Championship game in 3 of those years. The Browns broke into the ranks of the NFL's elite particularly on defense with a 12-4 showing in 1986. Behind Koser's 3,854 yards passing and one of the league's stingiest defenses featuring 5 Pro Bowlers, the Browns dominated the AFC Central with the best record in the AFC and clinched home field advantage throughout the playoffs. In the divisional playoffs, the Browns needed some serious heroics to overcome the New York Jets. The Jets were leading 20-10 with less than 4 minutes to play, with the Browns in a dire 3rd and 24 situation. As fate would have it, Mark Gastineau was called for roughing the passer, which gave Cleveland a first down. The drive ended with Kevin Mack running into the end zone for a touchdown. After going 3 and out, the Jets went back on defense, but allowed the rejuvenated Browns to again drive the ball deep into their end of the field. With 11 seconds remaining in regulation, Mark Mosley kicked a field goal to tie the game. In the first of 2 ensuing overtime periods, Mosley missed his next attempt, but later redeemed himself by ending what had become the second longest game in NFL history, a 23-20 victory for the Browns. The 1986 AFC Championship game saw the Denver Broncos arrive in the windswept, hostile confines of Cleveland Municipal Stadium. No one knew at the time, but the Broncos would become Cleveland's nemesis of the Koser era, having only lost once to the Browns in a span that still continues to this day. As with the divisional playoffs of the previous week, the AFC title game would also prove to be an overtime heartstopper. But this time, it was John Elway and the Broncos who came away the victors. Pinned in on the Denver 2-yard line with 5:11 left to play and the wind in his face, Elway embarked on his now famous 98-yard march downfield, which is now known by NFL historians as simply the drive. With 34 seconds on the clock, Elway's 5-yard touchdown pass to Mark Jackson tied the game at 20 apiece. The 79,973 Browns fans in attendance were silenced when Rich Carlis's field goal attempt just made it inside the left upright to win the game 23-20 for Denver early into overtime. The Browns' success was replicated in 1987, with 22 touchdown passes and 3,000 yards for Koser and 8 Pro Bowlers. Cleveland won another AFC Central crown with a 10-5 record and easily defeated the Indianapolis Colts 38-21 in the divisional playoff to set up a rematch with the Broncos in the AFC Championship game, this time in Denver. With the score 21-3 in favor of the Broncos at halftime, Koser led a third-quarter comeback with 2 touchdowns by Ernest Biner and another by Reggie Langhorne. Early in the fourth quarter, Webster Slaughter's 4-yard touchdown catch tied the game at 31-31. The Broncos regained the lead with a 20-yard Sammy Winder touchdown with less than 5 minutes to go, setting the stage for another Browns comeback. Or so they thought. Koser drove the Browns to the Broncos' 8-yard line with 1:12 to go, and handed off to Biner. Just when it looked like he had an open route to the end zone, Broncos defensive back Jeremiah Castile stripped him of the ball. The Broncos recovered what became known as the fumble. After taking an intentional safety, the Broncos had shocked the Browns again, 38-33. Injuries to Koser and 2 of his backups sidelined them for much of the 1988 season, but the Browns still finished 10-6. A final week comeback victory in a snowstorm at Cleveland Municipal Stadium over the Houston Oilers clinched them a wild-card playoff spot and a home game rematch against the Oilers in the first round. After Mike Pagel, in for an injured Don Strock, threw a touchdown pass to Webster Slaughter late in the fourth quarter to pull the Browns within a point at 24-23. The Browns had 3 chances to recover an onside kick, but the Oilers recovered and stopped the Cleveland comeback. Schottenheimer left the Browns by mutual agreement with Model shortly after the loss to the Oilers. Model was tired of losing in the playoffs, and Schottenheimer was tired of what he perceived as Model's interference with his coaching personnel and game strategy. The Kansas City Chiefs quickly hired Schottenheimer for the 1989 season. Bud Carson was his replacement in Cleveland, but his tenure was short, only 1.5 years. The 1989 season opened with the Browns defeating the rival Pittsburgh Steelers at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh 51-0, which as of 2010 remains the most lopsided game in the rivalry as well as the all-time worst loss for the Steelers. The rest of the season was headlined by Slaughter's Pro Bowl-worthy 1,236 yards receiving, and was a success at 7-3 until a 10-10 tie with Schottenheimer's Chiefs in November led to a 3-game losing streak. 2 comeback wins over the Minnesota Vikings and Houston Oilers in the season's final 2 weeks kept them in the playoff race. The tie ended up being the Browns' saving grace, with their 9-6-1 record winning them the AAFC Central title and first round bye over the Oilers and Pittsburgh Steelers at 9-7. The Browns narrowly survived a scare from the Buffalo Bills in their divisional playoff game, when Scott Norwood missed an extra point that would have pulled Buffalo within 3 points and, later, when Jim Kelly's desperation pass to the end zone on the final play of the game was intercepted by Clay Matthews. Cleveland's 34-30 win set them up for another tilt with the Broncos in Denver for the AAFC Championship. While their 2 previous matchups went down to the wire, the result of this particular game was never in doubt. The Broncos led from start to finish, and a long-away touchdown pass to Sammy Winder put the game away in the fourth quarter. Denver easily won 37-21. In 1990 things began to unravel. Koser threw more interceptions than touchdowns for the first time in his career. And the team finished last in the league in rushing offense, and near the bottom in rushing defense. Carson was fired after a 2-7 start, and the team finished 3-13, second worst in the league. After the season, Bill Belichick, defensive coordinator of the then Super Bowl champion New York Giants, was named head coach. Bill Belichick and Model's move. The Browns saw only a slight improvement under Belichick in 1991, finishing 6-10. Koser was markedly better, with a ratio of 18 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, and Leroy Hoard had a breakout season. The next season, with Koser sitting out much of the season and Mike Tomczak in under center, Cleveland was in the thick of the AFC Central race before dropping their final 3 games to finish 7-9. The 1993 season saw Belichick make the controversial decision of cutting Koser while backup Vinny Testaverde, who had been signed from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was injured. The Browns were in first place at the time when the Browns faltered as Todd Philcox became the starter. Koser was signed by the Dallas Cowboys and a few days later led the Cowboys to a win in place of an injured Troy Aikman. Koser would win a ring that season as the Cowboys won the Super Bowl with a healthy Aikman. Cleveland won only 2 of its final 9 games, finishing 7-9 once again. Cleveland managed to right the ship in 1994, although the quarterback situation hadn't quite improved. A solid defense led the league for fewest yards allowed per attempt, sending 4 players to the Pro Bowl. The Browns finished 11-5, making the playoffs for the first time in 4 seasons. In the AFC wild-card game against the New England Patriots, the Browns' defense picked off Drew Bledsoe 3 times, with Testaverde completing 2/3 of his passes, to win 20-13. Arch-rival Pittsburgh ended the Browns' season the following week, however, with a 29-9 blowout in the AFC divisional game. Model announced on November 6, 1995, that he had signed a deal to relocate the Browns to Baltimore in 1996, a move which would return the NFL to Baltimore for the first time since the Colts relocated to Indianapolis after the 1983 season. The very next day, on November 7, 1995, Cleveland voters overwhelmingly approved an issue that had been placed on the ballot at Model's request, before he made his decision to move the franchise, which provided $175 million in tax dollars to refurbish the outmoded and declining Cleveland Municipal Stadium. Taxpayers ultimately paid close to $300 million to demolish the old stadium and construct a new stadium for the Browns on the site of Municipal Stadium. Browns fans reacted angrily to the news of Model's plan to relocate the Browns. Over 100 lawsuits were filed by fans, the city of Cleveland, and a host of others. Congress held hearings on the matter. Actor-comedian Drew Carey returned to his hometown of Cleveland on November 26, 1995, to host Fan Jam in protest of the proposed move. A protest was held in Pittsburgh during the Browns game. One of the few instances that Steelers fans and Browns fans were supporting each other, as fans in Pittsburgh felt that Model was robbing their team of their rivalry with the Browns. Virtually all of the team sponsors immediately pulled their support, leaving Municipal Stadium devoid of advertising during the team's final weeks. The 1995 season was a disaster on the field as well. After starting 3-1, the Browns lost 3 straight before the news broke about the team's impending move cut the legs out from under the team. They finished 5-11, including a 1-8 record in the 9 games after the announcement. Fans in the DAWG Pound became so unruly during their final home game against the Cincinnati Bengals that moving towards the end zone had to be moved to the opposite end of the field. Rows of empty seats were torn from the stadium and thrown on the field. Stalls and sinks in the restrooms were torn from the walls. Several fans set fires in the stands, especially in the DAWG Pound section, and assaulted security officials and police officers who tried to quell the growing fires. The Browns won their final home game. Belichick was fired by Model via telephone in February 1996, exactly 1 week after the switch to Baltimore was made official. The new team became the Baltimore Ravens. Inactivity. After extensive talks between the NFL, the Browns, and officials of the two cities, Cleveland accepted a legal settlement that would keep the Browns' legacy in Cleveland. In February 1996, the NFL announced that the Browns would be deactivated for 3 years, and that a new stadium would be built for a new Browns team, as either an expansion team or a team moved from another city, that would begin play in 1999. Model would in turn be granted a new franchise, the NFL's 31st, for Baltimore, the Baltimore Ravens, retaining the current contracts of players and personnel. The Browns ceased play at the end of the 1995 season when Model relocated the organization to Baltimore. The Browns franchise was then reactivated, and its roster restocked via an expansion draft before resuming play in the 1999 season. There would be a new team, but the Browns' name, colors, history, records, awards, and archives would all remain in Cleveland. The move fueled a proliferation of 12 new stadiums throughout the NFL. Using the NFLA City of Cleveland agreements promised to supply a team to Cleveland by 1999, several NFL franchises used the threat of relocation to coerce their respective cities to build new stadiums with public funds. Cleveland NFL Football LLC was formed by the NFL. The president of the trust was Bill Futterer, and NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue was the trustee. The trust represented the NFL in the stadium design and construction, managed the sale of suites and club seats, and sold permanent seat licenses and season tickets. Additionally, the trust reorganized the Browns backers fan clubs across the United States, resumed coaches shows on television and radio throughout the state of Ohio, and conducted a dramatic one-year countdown celebration that incorporated the first live Internet broadcast in NFL history. The trust operated its campaign under a countdown to 99 theme, utilizing Hall of Famers such as Lou Groza and Jim Brown extensively, and sold nearly 53,000 season tickets, a team record in 1998. It remains the only time in professional American football history that a league operated a team in absentia in order to preserve the history of the franchise and to build value in that franchise for the future owner. The NFL sold the Browns as an expansion team in 1998 to former Browns minority owner Al Lerner. The purchase price was a then North American record $530 million, more than double any previous selling price for a pro sports team. Commissioner Tagliabue announced that the Browns would be an expansion team, rather than a relocated team, at the owners' meeting in March 1998. Officially, the National Football League, Pro Football Hall of Fame, Browns, and Ravens all recognize the current Browns team as a continuation of the team founded in 1946. The Ravens' 1998 Fan and Media Guide referred to longtime staffers as having worked for the model organization before the Ravens were created in 1996. Lerner family ownership. Cleveland returned to the NFL in 1999 with high hopes and expectations, featuring deep-pocketed ownership in Al Lerner. The team's football operations appeared to be in solid hands in the form of President and CEO Carmen Policy and General Manager Dwight Clark, both of whom had come from the San Francisco 49ers. Chris Palmer, former offensive coordinator of the Jacksonville Jaguars, was hired as head coach. The team was rebuilt from a special expansion draft and the regular NFL draft. The latter included the number 1 selection, QB Tim Couch. It was to be expected that the resurrected Browns would struggle at first, as for all practical purposes they were an expansion team. However, the Browns' first 2 seasons were awful even by expansion standards. 1999 started with a home game against the rival Pittsburgh Steelers on ESPN Sunday Night Football, with Cleveland native Drew Carey participating in the opening game coin toss. However, it would be the only highlight for the Browns that night. The Steelers got revenge on the 51-0 loss to the Browns 10 years earlier by beating the Browns 43-0 in their first game back. Though it is not the team's worst loss ever, it is their second worst loss since the team returned to the NFL, behind a 48-0 loss to Jacksonville on December 3, 2000. The 1999 season saw the Browns start 0-7 en route to a 2-14 finish, the worst in franchise history. 2000 was slightly better, with a 3-13 finish, the lone highlight being the Browns' first home win in 5 years, against the Steelers on September 17. Compounding the fans' frustration was the Baltimore Ravens' win over the New York Giants in Super Bowl XXXV that season. Though the Ravens were considered a new franchise, the team still had players such as Matt Stover and Rob Burnett who had played for the Browns before the model move. Palmer was fired after the season and replaced by University of Miami coach Butch Davis. Under Davis the Browns became more competitive, finishing 7-9 in 2001, 3 games out of the playoffs. With the team apparently close to being a contender again, Clark was forced to resign after the season, and Davis was named general manager as well as coach. In 2002, the Browns finished 9-7, and due to multiple tiebreakers they made the playoffs for the first time since 1994. Facing Pittsburgh in the first round, the Browns led 33-21 with 5 minutes to go, but ultimately lost 36-33. Their largest lead in the game was 17 points. They led 24-7 in the third quarter. After that point the Steelers outscored them 29-9. Also during the 2002 season, owner Al Lerner died on October 2, and ownership then was taken over by his son Randy. The Browns could not sustain the momentum from 2002, finishing with double-digit losing records in 2003, 2004, 2005, and 2006. Davies resigned November 30, 2004 with the team shouldering a 3-8 record. Policy had resigned earlier in the year. Offensive coordinator Terry Robisky was named interim head coach for the remainder of the 2004 season. Before the 2005 season began, Romeo Crennel, a one-time Browns assistant coach under Chris Palmer and, at the time, defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, was named the Browns head coach. The team also hired Phil Savage, who had been Ravens VP GM Ozzie Newsome's top aide, as a new general manager. But despite the changes, the 2005 and 2006 seasons saw the Browns' losing trend continue, with records of 6-10 and 4-12 respectively. Prior to the Browns' final game of the 2005 NFL season, ESPN reported that team president John Collins was going to fire Savage. However, the resulting uproar from fans and local media was strong, and on January 3, 2006 Collins resigned instead. The role of team president and CEO was vacated until 2008, with owner Randy Lerner filling in as de facto CEO until Michael Keenan was hired. In the 2007 season, the team saw a remarkable turnaround on the field. After opening the season with a 34-7 defeat by the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Browns traded starting quarterback Charlie Frye to the Seattle Seahawks, with backup Derek Anderson assuming the starting role. In his first start, Anderson led the Browns to a 51-45 win over the Cincinnati Bengals, tying the franchise record of 5 touchdown passes in a single game. The Browns finished the 2007 season a surprising 10-6, but missed the playoffs due to a tiebreaker. Nevertheless, the record was the team's best since 1994. 6 players earned Pro Bowl recognition, with Anderson starting for the AAFC in place of New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady. Coach Crennel agreed to a 2-year contract extension. The Browns entered the 2008 season with high expectations, and many pundits predicted that the team would win the division. The highlight of the season was an upset of the defending Super Bowl champion New York Giants on Monday Night Football. However, inconsistent play and key injuries led to a disappointing 4-12 record. The Browns ended up using 4 starting quarterbacks during the season. Derek Anderson, Brady Quinn, and Ken Dorsey were lost to injury. The fourth, Bruce Gradkowski, was signed mid-season. Ending with 6 straight losses, the Browns finished with the franchise's first 2 consecutive shutouts. Savage and Crennel were subsequently fired. On January 5, 2009, the Browns hired former New York Jets coach Eric Mancini as head coach. Mancini, who started his career as a ball boy in Cleveland, worked as an assistant under former Browns coach Bill Belichick until becoming head coach of the Jets in 2006. On January 25, the team hired George Kokinis as the team's general manager. The Browns continued to struggle as they became accustomed to a completely new coaching staff. Throughout the preseason, Brady Quinn and Derek Anderson competed for the starting quarterback position. Quinn ended up winning the job, but after 3 games marked by team inconsistency, he was benched in favor of Anderson. On November 1, the team announced the firing of GM Kokinis after only 8 regular season games, with his duties essentially being assumed by Mancini. Soon afterwards, Mancini decided that a quarterback switch was to be made again, and Quinn given the starting job back. After being 1-11 at the 3/4 point in the season, the team went on a 4-game winning streak and finished with a record of 5-11, highlighted by the team beating the Steelers after 12 consecutive losses against their bitter rival. On December 21, 2009, as Mancini's first season was coming to a close, former Green Bay Packers and Seattle Seahawks head coach Mike Holmgren was hired as a team president and was given authority over the team's football operations. This hire was made after Browns owner Randy Lerner announced that he wished to bring in a serious, credible leader to steer the team in the right direction. After much public speculation by the media that Holmgren and Mancini would not be able to coexist, Holmgren announced the retaining of Mancini and the entire coaching staff for the 2010 season. The following week, Holmgren hired former Philadelphia Eagles general manager Tom Heckett to become the new GM for the Browns. After taking control as president, Holmgren decided to release Anderson and trade away Quinn. He signed veteran quarterback Jake Delhomme, who had led the Carolina Panthers to the Super Bowl in 2003, along with veteran backup Seneca Wallace from the Seattle Seahawks. During the 2010 draft, the team of Holmgren, Heckett and Mancini focused mostly on improving the team's defensive secondary, although they also managed to acquire the University of Texas's Colt McCoy in the 3rd round. McCoy has the most recorded wins as a starting quarterback in NCAA history. Despite heading into the 2010 season with an overall sense of optimism, the Browns started off poorly. They set an NFL record when they lost their first 3 games after leading in the 4th quarter. They finally won their first game against the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 4. However, both Delhomme and Wallace injured their ankles over the first 5 games, forcing Colt McCoy to start in Week 6 against the Steelers even though Mike Holmgren stated that he would sit and learn the entire season. Though McCoy lost his first NFL start against the Steelers, he was able to win the following week when the Browns upset the defending Super Bowl champions, the New Orleans Saints. With this victory, the Browns defeated the defending Super Bowl champions 3 years in a row, becoming the 7th NFL team to achieve this feat. The Browns continued this positive streak by outplaying the New England Patriots for a 34-14 victory in their next game. However, they lost to the New York Jets in overtime the following week, despite a late fourth-quarter game-tying touchdown drive by McCoy. On January 3, 2011, after losing 4 games in a row to end the season, Holmgren and the Browns decided to fire head coach Eric Bieniemy, who posted a record of 10-22 in his 2 seasons as head coach. 11 days later, Holmgren signed St. Louis Rams offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur to become the new head coach, and former Buffalo Bills and Chicago Bears head coach Dick Torin as their defensive coordinator. While potentially hamstrung in attempts to install a new offensive system by the NFL lockout, the Browns played through the first half of the 2011 season at or near the bottom of the league in almost every offensive category. Starting several rookies, Shurmur's team was frequently beset by confusion in personnel and play calling at critical junctures. Early in the year the defense surrendered a touchdown on a failure to break the defensive huddle, and the team's chances in several games were compromised by a host of special teams mistakes and meltdowns. At the midpoint of the season, in a telling series in which Shurmur called for a conservative ball protection strategy, the Browns recovered their own fumble resulting from a mistakenly called handoff to a third-string tight end lined up at fullback, only to botch a short go-ahead field goal attempt with a failed snap and uncoordinated line movement. The Browns would go for a Euro 12 in Shurmur's first season, including losing 6 in a row to end the 2011 campaign. New owner Jimmy Haslam announced on October 16, 2012 that Holmgren would stay on through the 2012 season in a lesser role, and would then retire. On November 25, it was reported by CBS and confirmed by the Browns that Holmgren would officially step down following the Browns' 20-14 win over the Steelers. Haslam ownership. In July 2012, owner Randy Lerner announced that he planned to sell the Browns to businessman Jimmy Haslam. The sale was finalized on August 2, 2012 in excess of $1 billion. Haslam officially was approved as the new owner on October 16, 2012 at the NFL owners' meetings, and the very next day former Eagles president Joe Banner was named as the Browns' new CEO. The Browns began the 2012 season by losing their first 5 games. Having lost their last 6 games to end the 2011 season, this marked an 11-game losing streak, tied for the longest in team history with the 1974 Euro 75 teams. On October 12, the Browns defeated the Bengals 34 24 in Cleveland, behind 2 TD passes from rookie QB Brandon Weeden to end the streak. On December 31, 2012, head coach Pat Shurmur and general manager Tom Hackett were fired. Shurmur went 9-23 in his 2 seasons as head coach. After interviewing numerous candidates such as Chip Kelly and Ken Hunt, the Browns decided to hire former offensive coordinator and tight ends coach, Rob Chudzinski, on January 10, 2013. On January 15, 2013, Haslam and Banner announced that the naming rights to Cleveland Browns Stadium were sold to FirstEnergy, and the stadium would be renamed FirstEnergy Stadium. The name change officially received Cleveland City Council approval on February 15, 2013. On January 18, 2013, the Browns hired Michael Lombardi who had a previous stint with the Browns in the player personnel department in the 80s and 90s as vice president of player personnel, making him Tom Hackett's replacement. The Browns would finish with a 4-12 record in the first season under the new regime, finishing last in the AAFC North Division, and losing 7 in a row to finish the 2013 campaign. Following the 2013 season finale on December 29, 2013, the Browns fired Shudzinski after only 1 year as head coach. On January 24, 2014, the Browns hired Mike Pettine as the 15th full-time head coach in team history. On February 11, 2014, the Browns announced that Lombardi would be replaced by Ray Farmer as GM, and that Joe Banner would resign as CEO. In the first round of the 2014 NFL Draft, the Browns selected cornerback Justin Gilbert from Oklahoma State with the 8th pick, and Heisman Trophy-winning quarterback Johnny Manziel out of Texas A&M with the 22nd overall pick. On July 14, 2014, it was announced that the Browns will use a live bull mastiff as their new mascot. The dog will be named Swagger. Logos and uniforms. Logos: the Browns are the only National Football League team without a helmet logo. The logoless helmet serves as the Browns' official logo. The organization has used several promotional logos throughout the years. Players' numbers were painted on the helmets from the 1957 to 1960. And an unused CB logo was created in 1965, but for much of their history, the Browns' helmets have been an unadorned burnt orange color with a top stripe of dark brown divided by a white stripe. The team has had various promotional logos throughout the years, such as the Brownie Elf mascot or a brown bee in a white football. While Art Model did away with the Brownie Elf in the mid-1960s, believing it to be too childish, its use has been revived under the current ownership. The popularity of the DAWG pound section at FirstEnergy Stadium has led to a brown and orange dog being used for various Browns functions. But overall, the orange, logo-less helmet continues to remain as the primary trademark of the Cleveland Browns. Uniforms: the original designs of the jerseys, pants, and socks have remained mostly the same, but the helmets have gone through many significant revisions throughout the years. Jerseys: 1. Home uniforms: brown with white numerals and a white-orange-white-orange-white stripe sequence on the sleeves. 2. Away uniforms: white with brown numerals and a brown-orange-brown-orange-brown stripe sequence on the sleeves. The 3 white or brown stripes are approximately twice the width of the 2 orange stripes. 3. A third orange jersey was used for night games in the 1953, a Euro unregistered trademark 54 and a Euro unregistered trademark 55 seasons, as well as games from 2002 to 2005 when the NFL encouraged teams to create a third jersey. In 2013, the Browns wore a combination of brown pants and jerseys in honor of Jim Brown. Pants: 1. White, a Euro white with an orange-brown-orange stripe sequence on the sides. 2. Brown, a Euro solid brown. Orange pants with a wider brown-white-brown stripe sequence were worn from 1975 to 1983 and become symbolic of the Cardiac Kids era. The orange pants were worn again occasionally in 2003 and 2004. Socks: brown or white with matching stripe pattern to jerseys. Solid brown with brown jerseys and solid orange with white jerseys. Solid brown when worn with white pants. White striped socks with brown pants. Exceptions: white striped socks appeared occasionally with the white jerseys in 2003, a Euro 2005 and again in 2007. Brown striped socks appeared with 1957-style throwback uniforms in 2006, a Euro 2008. Helmet: solid white. Solid white for day games and solid orange for night games. Orange with a single white stripe. Orange with a single white stripe and brown numerals on the sides. Orange with a brown-white-brown stripe sequence and brown numerals on the sides. Orange with a brown-white-brown stripe sequence. Over the years, the Browns have had on-again/off-again periods of wearing white for their home games, particularly in the 1970s and 80s, as well as in the early 2000s after the team returned to the league. Until recently, when more NFL teams have started to wear white at home at least once a season, the Browns were the only non-subtropical team north of the Mason-Dixon line to wear white at home on a regular basis. Numerals first appeared on the jersey sleeves in 1961. Over the years, there have been minor revisions to the sleeve stripes, the first occurring in 1968 and 1969 when stripes began to be silk-screened onto the sleeves and separated from each other to prevent color bleeding. However, the basic five-stripe sequence has remained intact. A recent revision was the addition of the initials AL to honor team owner Al Lerner, who died in 2002. This was removed in 2013 upon Jimmy Haslam assuming ownership of the team. Orange pants with a brown-white-brown stripe sequence were worn from 1975 to 1983 and becomes symbolic of the Cardiac Kids era. The orange pants were worn again occasionally in 2003 and 2004. Other than the helmet, the uniform was completely redesigned for the 1984 season. New striping patterns appeared on the white jerseys, brown jerseys and pants. Solid brown socks were worn with brown jerseys and solid orange socks were worn with white jerseys. Brown numerals on the white jerseys were outlined in orange. White numerals on the brown jerseys were double outlined in brown and orange. However, this particular uniform set was not popular with the fans, and in 1985 the uniform was returned to a look similar to the original design. It remained that way until 1995. In 1999, the expansion Browns adopted the traditional design with two exceptions: 1. Jersey sleeve numbers were moved to the shoulders, and 2. The orange-brown-orange pants stripes were significantly widened. Experimentation with the uniform design began in 2002. An alternate orange jersey was introduced that season as the NFL encouraged teams to adopt a third jersey, and a major design change was made when solid brown socks appeared for the first time since 1984 and were used with white, brown and orange jerseys. Other than 1984, striped socks had been a signature design element in the team's traditional uniform. The white striped socks appeared occasionally with the white jerseys in 2003, Euro 2005 and 2007. Experimentation continued in 2003 and 2004 when the traditional orange-brown-orange stripes on the white pants were replaced by two variations of a brown-orange-brown sequence, one in which the stripes were joined and the other in which they were separated by white. The joined sequence was used exclusively with both jerseys in 2005. In 2006, the traditional orange-brown-orange sequence returned. Additionally, in 2006, the team reverted to an older uniform style, featuring grey face masks. The original stripe pattern on the brown jersey sleeves and the older, darker shade of brown. The Browns wore brown pants for the first time in team history on August 18, 2008, preseason game against the New York Giants. The pants contain no stripes or markings. The team had the brown pants created as an option for their away uniform when they integrated the grey face mask in 2006. They were not worn again until the Browns family scrimmage on August 9, 2009 with white striped socks. The Browns have continued to wear the brown pants throughout the 2009 season. Browns quarterback Brady Quinn supported the team's move to wearing the brown pants full-time, claiming that the striped pattern on the white pants prohibit mobility. However, the fans generally did not like the brown pants, and after being used for only one season, the team returned to their white shirt on white pants in 2010. Coach Eric Mancini told the plain dealer the Browns won't use the brown pants anymore. It wasn't very well received, Mancini said. I hope we can get to the point where we can wear fruit on our heads and people wouldn't notice. At the time, the brown pants weren't officially dropped by the team, but simply not used. The Browns chose to wear white at home for the 2011 season, and wound up wearing white for all 16 games as when they were on the road, the home team would wear their darker-colored uniform. The Browns brought back the brown pants in their home game against the Buffalo Bills on October 3, 2013 on Thursday Night Football, pairing them with the brown jerseys. It marked the first time the team wore an all-brown combination in team history. Rivalries. The Cleveland Browns have rivalries with all three of its AAFC North opponents. In addition, the team has had historical rivalries with the Baltimore Colts, Denver Broncos, and Detroit Lions. The team's biggest rival in the AAFC was the San Francisco 49ers, though this has cooled and in some cases turned into a friendly relationship, as the Browns now play in AFC and the 49ers play in the NFC. Additionally, Many 49ers personnel helped the Browns relaunch in 1999, as well as former team president Mike Holmgren, having started his NFL career in San Francisco. In addition, 49ers owners John York and Denise DeBartolo York reside in the Youngstown, Ohio, 60 miles southeast of Cleveland. Divisional rivalries: Pittsburgh Steelers. Often called the Turnpike Rivalry, the Browns' main rival has long been the Pittsburgh Steelers. Though the Browns dominated this rivalry early in the series, the Steelers currently have the all-time edge, 64-57, making it the oldest rivalry in the AAFC. Former Browns owner Art Model scheduled home games against the Steelers on Saturday night from 1964 to 1970 to help fuel the rivalry. The rivalry has been fueled by the proximity of the two teams, number of championships both teams have won, players and personnel having played and/or coached for both sides, and personal bitterness. Though the rivalry has cooled in Pittsburgh due to the Model move, the Steelers are still top rival for Cleveland. Cincinnati Bengals. Originally conceived due to the personal animosity between Paul Brown and Art Model, the Battle of Ohio between the Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals have been fueled by the sociocultural differences between Cincinnati and Cleveland, a shared history between the two teams, and even similar team colors, since Brown used the exact shade of orange for the Bengals that he used for the Browns. Model, in fact, moved the Browns to the AFC after the AFL-NFL merger in order to have a rivalry with the Bengals. The rivalry has also produced two of the 8 highest-scoring games in NFL history. Cincinnati has the all-time edge, 42-37, having won the majority of games against the Browns since they returned to the NFL in 1999. Baltimore Ravens, created as a result of the Cleveland Browns relocation controversy, the rivalry between the Browns and Ravens was more directed at Art Model than the team itself, and is simply considered a divisional game in Baltimore. Unlike the other two rivalries, this one is more lopsided. The Ravens led 20-7. Other rivalries: Detroit Lions. The Lions rivalry began in the 1950s when the Browns and Lions played in 4 NFL championships, with the Lions winning 3 championships over the Browns and the Browns won 1 championship over the Lions. This was arguably one of the NFL's best rivalries in the 1950s. The two teams now since 2002 play an annual preseason game known as the Great Lakes Classic. Baltimore-Indianapolis Colts. The Colts rivalry was hot in the 1960s. The Browns upset the Colts in the 1964 NFL Championship, and the Colts got revenge by beating the Browns in the 1968 NFL Championship. The Browns also beat the Indianapolis Colts in a 1987 divisional playoff game. Denver Broncos. The Browns had a brief rivalry with the Broncos that arose from 3 AAFC championship matches from 1986-89. In the 1986 AFC Championship, quarterback John Elway led the drive to secure a tie in the waning moments at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. The Broncos went on to win in 23-20 in overtime. 1 year later, the two teams met again in the 1987 AFC Championship at Mile High Stadium. Denver took a 21-3 lead, but Browns quarterback Bernie Koser threw 4 touchdown passes to tie the game at 31-31 halfway through the fourth quarter. After a long drive, John Elway threw a 20-yard touchdown pass to running back Sammy Winder to give Denver a 38-31 lead. Cleveland advanced to Denver's 8-yard line with 1:12 left, but Broncos safety Jeremiah Castile stripped Browns running back Ernest Biner of the football at the 2-yard line, a play that has been called the fumble by Browns fans. The Broncos recovered it, gave Cleveland an intentional safety, and went on to win 38-33. 34. The two teams met yet again in the 1989 AFC Championship at Mile High Stadium, which the Broncos easily won by a score of 37-21. 35. Interestingly, the Broncos would not win the Super Bowl after any of the championship games where they beat the Browns. Fanbase, DAWG Pound. Perhaps the most visible Browns fans are those that can be found in the DAWG Pound. Originally the name for the bleacher section located in the open end of Old Cleveland Municipal Stadium, the current incarnation is likewise located in the east end of FirstEnergy Stadium and still features hundreds of orange and brown-clad fans sporting various canine-related paraphernalia. The fans adopted that name in 1984 after members of the Browns defense used it to describe the team's defense. Retired cornerback Hanford Dixon, who played his entire career for the Browns, is credited with naming the Cleveland Browns defense the DAWGS in the mid-80s. Dixon and teammates Frank Minifield and Eddie Johnson would bark at each other and to the fans in the bleachers at the Cleveland Stadium to fire them up. It was from Dixon's naming that the DAWG Pounds subsequently took its title. The fans adopted that name in the years after. Due to this nickname, since the team's revival the Browns have used a bulldog as an alternate logo. Browns Backers, the most prominent organization of Browns fans is the Browns Backers Worldwide. The organization has approximately 105,000 members and is considered the largest sports fan organization in the USA. Browns Backers clubs can be found in every major city in the United States, and in a number of military bases throughout the world, with the largest club being in Phoenix, Arizona. In addition, the organization has a sizable foreign presence in places as far away as Egypt, Australia, Japan, Sri Lanka, and McMurdo Station in Antarctica. According to the official fan club of the Cleveland Browns, the two largest international fan clubs are in Aylen SHVUT, West Bank and Niagara, Canada, with Aylen SHVUT having 129 members and Niagara having 310. A 2006 study conducted by Bisonal determined that Browns fans are the most loyal fans in the NFL. The study, while not scientific, was largely based on fan loyalty during winning and losing seasons, attendance at games, and challenges confronting fans. The study noted that Browns fans filled 99.8% of the seats at Cleveland Browns Stadium during the last 7 seasons, despite a combined record of 36 wins and 76 losses over that span. Following former Browns owner Randy Lerner's acquisition of English football club Aston Villa, official Villa outlets have started selling Cleveland Browns goods such as jerseys and NFL balls. This has raised interest in England and strengthened the link between the two sporting clubs. Aston Villa supporters have set up an organisation known as the Aston Browns Backers of Birmingham. Famous fans, the Cleveland Browns were the favourite team of Elvis Presley. Reason for this decision by the AOE King of Rock unregistered trademark now unregistered trademark roller A was the fact that his friend Gene Hickerson, with whom he had played football in their common youth in Memphis, was contracted by the Browns in 1957 and played there during his entire career until 1973. Also defender Bobby Franklin, who had played from 1960 to 1966 for the Browns, was a friend of Elvis Presley. WWE Hall of Fame wrestler and commentator Jerry the King Lawler, though he has spent most of his life in Memphis, spent part of his childhood in the Cleveland area and is a fan of the Browns. Fellow WWE wrestlers The Miz and Dolph Ziggler are also fans. Another fan of the team is baseball legend Hank Aaron. Other famous Browns fans include Drew Carey, Condoleezza Rice, Valerie Bertinelli, Machine Gun Kelly, Paul Adelstein and Brad Paisley. Players, current roster, players enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The Cleveland Browns have the 4th largest number of players enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame with a total of 16 enshrined players elected based on their performance with the Browns, and 8 more players or coaches elected who spent at least 1 year with the Browns franchise. No Browns players were inducted in the inaugural induction class of 1963. Otto Graham was the first Brown to be enshrined as a member of the class of 1965, and the most recent Brown to be included in the Pro Football Hall of Fame is Gene Hickerson, who was a member of the class of 2007. Cleveland Browns Legends. The Legends program honors former Browns who made noteworthy contributions to the history of the franchise. In addition to all the Hall of Famers listed above, the Legends list includes Pro Bowlers, retired uniform numbers, Browns Ring of Honor. Beginning in 2010, the Browns established a Ring of Honor, honoring the greats from the past by having their names displayed around the upper deck of FirstEnergy Stadium. The inaugural class in the Browns Ring of Honor was unveiled during the home opener on September 19, 2010, and featured the 16 Hall of Famers listed above who went into the Hall of Fame as Browns. Starting quarterbacks. First-round draft picks. Coaches of note, head coaches. Current staff, radio and TV. WKNR, WKRK-FM, and WNCX serve as co-flagship stations for the team's radio network. Games are covered on-site by play-by-play announcer Jim Donovan, color commentator Doug Dyken, and sideline reporter Nathan Zegura. WKRK-FM personalities Ken Carman and Dustin Fox, along with WKNR personalities Tony Rizzo and Gerald Cherry host the network pregame show, while WKRK host Jeff Phelps and Fox host the network postgame show. The team also produces Cleveland Browns Daily, a year-round daily radio show hosted by Nathan Zegura and Vic Karucki, which airs on WKNR from 1:03 p.m. weekdays. A weekly version of the show airs Saturday mornings on WKRK-FM. WKNR and WKRK also simulcast a Wednesday night preview show with Carman and Karucki, and a Thursday night coaches show with Carman, Zegura and head coach Mike Pettine. Cleveland NBC affiliate WKYC Channel 3 is the broadcast TV home of the Browns, airing all non-network preseason games, and other Browns-related programming during the season. Jim Donovan and former NFL player current CBS NFL analyst Solomon Wilcots comprise the announcing team, with WKYC weekend sports anchor Dave Chudesky on the sidelines. Sports Time Ohio serves as the team's cable TV outlet, as it airs replays of WKYC's preseason telecasts, as well as airing other Browns-related programming throughout the season. The Browns' in-house production team won a pair of Lower Great Lakes Emmy Awards in 2005. One was for a primetime special honoring the 1964 NFL Championship team, and one was for a commercial spot, Pop Culture, Cleveland native Arsenio Hall's television program. The Arsenio Hall Show is known for the audience's shouting "Woof, woof, woof," while pumping their fists, a chant that was used by fans of the Cleveland Browns football team. He would refer to a section of the live audience as his DAWG pound. Cleveland Brown is the name of a character originally featured on the Fox TV show Family Guy, and the central character of the spin-off series The Cleveland Show. On the TV show How I Met Your Mother, in the 7th season premiere, the main characters go to a Cleveland Browns-themed wedding. In the January 4, 2012 episode of Hot in Cleveland, the characters reminisce about how they met in the 1980s while waiting in the restroom line at a Cleveland Browns game. All the characters are wearing Browns gear except for Joy, who is wearing a Manchester United shirt. The 1966 film The Fortune Cookie with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau features the Browns and the city of Cleveland throughout the movie and was made with the cooperation of the Browns. In the 2008 film The Express explains how Ernie Davis is traded to the Browns by the Washington Redskins. In the 2010 film Hot Tub Time Machine, the Browns due to the butterfly effect in time win the AAFC championship game known for the drive. In the 2014 film Draft Day, fictional Browns general manager Sonny Weaver, Jr. attempts to land the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. See also, references. Further reading. External links, official website.